Yes, I made it. Thank you.
Hi, Darcy. Welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know how much you've heard of the rest of the meeting. We've had reports from Planning and Building and Supervisor Williams, and you wish to make a report on behalf of the Executive Office?
We just want to thank you all for your hard work, and we look forward to helping move this forward with the direction and leadership of this group and Supervisor Williams.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the Executive Office tuning in. It's nice to have supportive county staff. Michelle, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. How are you today? Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.
A little update on where schools are at. We are still awaiting information or guidelines from California Department of Public Health on what the look of schools or what the restrictions that schools are going to have to face in order to open next year. We do anticipate that guidance coming out by end of day today, and then on Monday receiving guidance from California Department of Education in terms of how to obtain those restrictions in a curricular fashion. So what's really interesting is there's been a lot of this at the state level. The state public health folks don't want to release orders or directives. They only want to give guidelines. Yet the local public health folks have really been asking the state to provide more of a directive of an order, I think, to take some of the political heat maybe that they're feeling. So there's been a delay really in getting good direction for how the state wants schools to look next year because of this going on. So I'm just being very honest. One of the advantages we have is that other countries are opening their schools. And so we are going to anticipate that there's going to be some sort of hybrid model where you're blending in class with distance learning. I am advising all school districts to make sure they have a robust distance learning program, because as we're seeing some countries open their schools, you're seeing some pretty high spikes in COVID cases actually hitting the schools. Most recent example is Israel. I'll post in our chat an interesting article that just came out this morning. In Israel, they had opened their schools at the beginning of May using the same idea as social bubbles that we have in our county currently for childcare. They called them capsules. However, they lifted the small sizes on May 17th, and by the end of May, they had over 200 cases in the schools. So they have now ordered that any school with any COVID cases has to go 100% distance learning. Now, these kids, you have to understand, also had masks and were socially distancing. They just didn't have a restriction on class size. So it's concerning news a little bit that's coming out. So the idea of having strong broadband is very important in our county in order to really support remote learning to the best of our ability. Without that strong connectivity, students have a very watered down experience with distance learning or remote learning.
Michelle, I think I saw that link. I think Chloe Reed was passing it around yesterday, and,
cool.
and it caught my eyes. With additional waves of COVID coming through and potentially us reverting to the restrictive sheltering, how many students in this county do you think are across the digital divide, unable to use Zoom and other digital classroom platforms?
Well, we don't have full county counts at this time. I have attempted to get them, but again, I don't have full access to the district's data. I do require them sharing it with me. But currently what we know is that we have 70 staff members throughout our county that do not have broadband access, and we have 1,598 students that districts have reported. Now, the data that I don't have is I don't have Fort Bragg, I don't have Round Valley, I don't have Potter Valley, and I don't have Manchester. but I have the other districts reporting. Fort Bragg is a fairly large district for us, so we do want to make sure we get the Fort Bragg numbers. And we also know that our North County, Laytonville, Leggett, Round Valley and Willits is also an area of where we don't have a lot of broadband. So Willits numbers were really high. Willits Unified had 680 students that have zero access to broadband out of a district that's about 2,000 kids.
Hey, Michelle, this is Emily with Jim Wood's office. Do you think you could email me or Ruth those numbers? We would really, really like to pass that on to the assembly
Absolutely.
member.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I did actually email them out to the entire list that Jeff had when I replied to the email. Are you on that?
Oh, I am on that list.
Yeah, you have the
Maybe let me look.
spreadsheet then.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it.
That too.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you, Michelle.
So in the districts where there's a high number of students that don't have that connect, it's likely that they will have more in class.
No, they're
Or just-
probably, it will depend on what the guidelines are. The smaller the district, the easier it is to meet the guidelines. Our current guidelines are under childcare, and there's social bubbles of 12 people that have to stay stable for 4 weeks. Districts looking at that, if you're not small like Leggett or Laytonville, you're probably looking at 100% distance learning for opening up in August. The littler districts have more of ability to look at serving students for a month on campus for 50% of your population, and then the other 50% of your population is doing a remote learning, and then you flip that every month. Not ideal.
Not ideal. And how is it for the special education population?
You know, what we're recommending that districts do is that they look at their most needy students first and serve those students on campus, and the students that are able to maintain in a distance environment, that you keep those students in your distance learning and really set up for your high needs kids, either special ed or high learning needs kids.
So if
Or keep those numbers low.
if the students are home on this monthly checkerboard and they have parents working, are you hearing concern about childcare?
Yeah, there is concern on childcare, even on the, how do we get teachers to work if they've got kids at home and they've got 1 month on, 1 month off. I mean, there's some real concerns about how to make this work. But we had some great brainstorming sessions with Dr. Doohan. But we put those on pause until the state guidance gets released. And my understanding is that the state guidance is not going to maintain or require social bubbles, but maintain social distancing and facial coverings for students. So the question really is how Dr. Doohan interprets that for us locally, whether she maintains the social bubble concept or relaxes the social bubble concept. But as you see by some of the information we're getting around the world, it's a little concerning on both fronts. So I know that our district superintendents very much want school back in session, in class, kids in seats, because we know it's the optimal learning environment for students, and it's going to help our economy the most. But at the same time, it's super important that we keep staff and students safe. So yeah, we should be knowing more by middle of next week, really.
Will it be up to Dr. Doohan or to the districts? I guess Dr. Doohan, I'm answering my own question, about if we see spikes in outbreak, how to dial back?
Yes, that will be up to Dr. Doohan. Now, of course, any district superintendent, has the ability to choose to be more strict than the health orders, put more stuff in place to protect their staff and students. The other thing that we're realizing is about 30% of our parents are not wanting to be back in school in the fall. They're concerned about the health and safety of their children, and they've reported that then you have the other 70% that are saying they want their students to be in school. We've also seen some surveys, I can't cite their sources, but that about 30% of staff are reporting concern about entering the school year with kids on campus in the fall. So it's all, yeah, it's playing out quite interestingly, I guess I could say.